Welcome to my channel. Thank you so much for watching. In today's tutorial, I'm going to show you how to crochet this little cardigan sweater, coat, or jacket for baby boys and girls between 0 and 3 months. You can easily make it smaller or bigger from a newborn size and up to 12 months. Down here in the information box, I'll go ahead and leave you some information on how you can easily make it smaller or bigger, so be sure to check that out. Now, as always, if you prefer a written pattern, check out my Etsy shop. I'll leave the link to my Etsy shop in the information box below. Thank you so much for your support. Now, to make this little sweater, this is the yarn that I used. It's DK weight yarn, but you can also use any number 3 yarn or a ply. I used exactly 1 skein, which is 100 grams of this yarn, to make the 0 to 3 month size. You will also need 5 buttons. These buttons are 12mm size, but you can also use 13mm size. Okay, let's get started, and thank you so much for watching. To begin, I'll be using this 3.5mm crochet hook, and today I'm using this number 3 yarn. You can also use any DK weight yarn or a ply. At the beginning of the video, I showed you the yarn that I'm using, and I told you how much yarn we're going to need for the size that we're making. To begin, I have 46 chains. This chain, without stretching, it's measuring about 9.25 inches, which is about 23.5 centimeters. So here, to begin, we're going to start on the 4th chain from the hook. And the stitch that I'm going to use to make this little sweater is a variation of the herringbone stitch. So here, to begin, I'm going to yarn over, and into this 4th chain, I'm going to grab a loop. I have 3 loops on the hook. Pass this loop through the first loop, grab a loop and pass through 1, grab a loop and pass through 2. Again, I'm going to yarn over, and into the next chain, I'm going to make the stitch. So grab a loop, pass this loop through the first loop, grab a loop and pass through 1, grab a loop and pass through 2. Here I'm going to make a total of 6, which is going to be for the front panel. Again, yarn over, insert your hook into the next chain, grab a loop, pass this loop through 1, grab a loop, pass through 1, grab a loop, and pass through 2. Now remember that if you click up here, there's a little gear. You can always slow the tutorial if it's going too fast for you. Again, yarn over, insert your hook into the next chain, grab a loop, pass through 1 loop, grab a loop, pass through 1, grab a loop, and pass through 2. I have 5, including the 3 chains. These 3 chains count as 1 stitch, so that's 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to make a total of 6, like I said. There, I have 6 stitches. Now chain 1. Now this chain here represents the first corner, and I have the first front panel. Now into the next chain, I'm going to make another stitch. So yarn over, grab a loop, pass this stitch through 1 loop, pass through 1, pass through 2. Yarn over, insert your hook into the next stitch, grab a loop, pass through 1, pass through 1, pass through 2. Here I'm going to make a total of 10, which is going to be for the shoulder, or what is going to be the sleeves. So yarn over again, and into the next chain, repeat the same thing for this stitch pattern. There's 10 stitches. Now chain 1, here's the second corner. I recommend that you place a stitch marker. I'm going to do that after I'm done with this row. So you can place a stitch marker here where we have the chain to mark the corners. This will be the second corner. Now I'm going to make a total of 12 herringbone stitches here. So into the next chain, make the first one. Oops. And continue until you have 12 of these stitches for the back side. I'll come back and show you what we need to do next. I finished making these 12 stitches for the back side. Now I'm going to chain 1, and into the next chain right here, I'm going to make my next stitch. Now make sure to place a stitch marker. Like I said, I've already placed some stitch markers on mine here, and as you can see, I decided to change yarn color. It's the same weight yarn. I wasn't going to have enough to make the sweater in the other light gray color. Now for the second sleeve, I'm going to make a total of 10. I already have 1, so into the next chain, make another stitch. That's 2. I have 10 stitches for the second sleeve. Now I'm going to chain 1, and here we should be left with 6 stitches, which is for the second front panel. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So finish this row by making these last 6 stitches, and then I'll come back and show you what we need to do next. I'm here at the end of the first row. I finished this row by making these last 6 stitches here for the second front panel. At the end of this first row, I have a total of 44 stitches. For this row, this is what we did. We started on the 4th chain from the hook. These 3 chains here counts as the first stitch, and then I did 5 more. So I have 6 stitches here, then I chained 1. This is the first corner, and then I did 10 for the front panel. Then I did 1 chain, that's the second corner, and then I did 12 for the back side. I did 1 chain for the third corner, and then I did 10 for the second sleeve. Then I chained 1 for the fourth corner, and I finished here with these last 6 stitches for the second front panel. So that's a total of 44 stitches at the end of this first row. Now for the second row, I'm going to chain 2. Now these 2 chains will never count as a stitch. So here, to begin, on top of the first stitch right here, I'm going to make a herringbone stitch. So yarn over, insert your hook on top of the first stitch, grab a loop, pass this loop through the first loop on the hook, grab a loop and pass through 1, grab a loop and pass through 2. Here I'm going to make 1 herringbone for each one of these 6 stitches. I already have 1. There, I have 6 herringbone stitches. I have the first corner, remove the stitch marker. Now inside this corner, I'm going to make a herringbone stitch, chain 1, and 1 more in this same chain space. This is how we're going to increase on each corner. You're going to make 2 separated by a chain. Return the stitch marker to mark the corner, and now you're going to continue and make 1 herringbone stitch on each one of these 10 stitches. So beginning on top of the next one, make a herringbone stitch. That's 1. I have the next corner, remove the stitch marker, and in this corner you're going to make a herringbone stitch, chain 1, and then 1 more. There, that's how you're going to work each one of the corners. Return the stitch marker to mark the corner here in the chain space, and then continue along and make these 12 herringbone stitches until you come to the next corner, where you're going to do the same thing I did here, and then work the next 10 for the second sleeve, then work the fourth corner, and finish here with the last 6 stitches for the second front panel. Here at the end, on top of the third chain, we're going to make the last stitch. Finish this second row, and then I'll come back and show you what we need to do next. I'm here at the end of the second row. Now here at the end, your last stitch is going to be made here into the third chain. Insert your hook there and make the last stitch there. And this is how I finished the second row. At the end of this second row, you should have a total of 52 stitches. Now, starting here, this first front panel, you should have 7 stitches. Then we have the first corner. From this stitch marker up to this next one, for this first sleeve, you should have 12 stitches. From this stitch marker to the next one, for the back side, you should have 14. From this stitch marker to the next, for the second sleeve, you should have 12 stitches, and here for the second front panel, you should have 7 stitches. At the end of each row from here on, we're going to increase by 8 stitches. Now, each one of the front panels is going to increase by 1 stitch. So 1 on this side and 1 on this side. For the sleeves, you're going to increase by 2. 1 here and 1 here, 1 here and 1 here. And then for the back side, 2 stitches as well. So that's a total of 8 extra stitches at the end of each row. Now for row 3, we're going to chain 2 and turn. Remember that 2 chains never count. Now here I'm going to work one of these herringbone stitches until I reach the stitch marker. So beginning on top of the first stitch, right here, right on top, I'm going to make my first stitch and into the next. Same thing. Seven. I have the chain space, remove the stitch marker, and in this chain space, make a herringbone stitch. Chain 1 and 1 more. Now return the stitch marker to mark the corner. Always don't forget. And now you're going to continue and work the next 12 stitches here for the first sleeve, and then you're going to make the second corner and then make 14 here for the back side, make the third corner, again 12 for the second sleeve, make the fourth corner, and finish here with these last 7 stitches for the second front panel. I'll meet you at the end of this third row. I'm here at the end of the third row. Now at the end of this third row, I have a total of 60 stitches. Here for the first front panel, I have 8 stitches. Between this stitch marker and the next, I have 14 stitches. Between this stitch marker and the next, for the back side, I have 16. Between this stitch marker and the next, for the second sleeve, I have 14. And then here for the second front panel, I have 8. So that's a total of 60 stitches at the end of this third row. Now for the fourth row, we're going to repeat the same thing. I'm going to chain 2 and turn. Here I'm going to work 1 stitch for each one of these 8. So beginning on top of the first, make the first herringbone stitch. That's 1. 8. We have the first corner, remove the stitch marker. In this chain space, make 1 herringbone stitch, chain 1, and then another one in this same chain space. And here's the corner. Now you're going to continue and do the same thing for the first sleeve. You're going to make here a total of 14, then you're going to make the second corner. For the back side, you're going to make 16, and then the third corner for the second sleeve, you're going to make 14, then make the fourth corner and finish here with these last 8 stitches for the second front panel. I'll meet you at the end of this fourth row. I'm here at the end of the fourth row. Now at the end of this fourth row, I have a total of 68 stitches. Beginning here with this first front panel, I have a total of 9 stitches here, and between this stitch marker and the next, I have 16 stitches for the first sleeve between this stitch marker and the next. For the back side, I have 18 stitches between this stitch marker and the next. For the second sleeve, there's 16 stitches, and here at the end I have 9 stitches. Now for row 5, we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to chain 2 and I'm going to turn. Here I'm going to work 1 stitch on each one of these 9, beginning on top of the first one. So here's the first one, and to the next, same thing. Nine. Here's the first corner, remove the stitch marker, and in this chain space make 1 stitch, chain 1, and then another one in the same chain space. There. Return your stitch marker to mark the corner, and then you're going to do the same thing here for this first sleeve. Here you're going to make 16, then the second corner, 18 for the back side, then the third corner, 16 for the second sleeve, the fourth corner, and then finish here with these last 9 stitches. I'll meet you at the end of this 5th row. I'm here at the end of the 5th row. Now at the end of this 5th row, I have a total of 76 stitches. Beginning with this front panel here, I have a total of 10 stitches. Then I have the first corner, so between this corner and the next, I have 18 stitches for the first sleeve. Between this corner and the next, for the back side, I have 20 stitches. Between this stitch marker and the next, for the second sleeve, I have 18, and here at the end I have 10 stitches. So that's a total of 76 stitches at the end of this 5th row. Now you're going to continue on your own and work a couple more rows exactly in the same way how I showed you here, making sure to make the corners in the same way how I showed you. So here for row 6, chain 2 and turn. Beginning on top of the first stitch, make your first herringbone stitch and continue with the next. Here's the first corner, remove the stitch marker and make a stitch here, then chain 1 and make another one. Here's the first corner, return your stitch marker in the chain space, and then continue. For this sleeve you're going to do 18, then make the second corner. For the back side you're going to make 20, then make the third corner. For the second sleeve you're going to make 18, then make the fourth corner and finish here with these last 10 stitches. And that's how you're going to continue for row 6. At the end of the 6th row, you're going to have 84 stitches. And continue watching. I will let you know how many more rows I'm going to do. So I will meet you at the end of that row. And I will also give you a stitch count after this 6th row, so continue watching. I finished making the yoke. I did a total of 8 rows here for the yoke. The last row that we did together was row 6, and at the end of the 6th row you were going to have 84 stitches, 11 stitches for each one of the front panels, 20 stitches for each one of the sleeves, and 22 stitches for the back side. Then I went ahead and did the 7th row. At the end of the 7th row I had 92 stitches. Each one of the front panels had 12 stitches, each one of the sleeves had 22 stitches, and for the back side I had 24 stitches. So 92 stitches at the end of the 7th row. Now I'm at the end of the 8th row, and at the end of this 8th row I have a total of 100 stitches. Each one of the front panels has 13 stitches. Each one of the sleeves has 24 stitches. And for the back side, I have 26 stitches. So I only did 2 more rows after we did the 6th row. So I did a total of 8 rows. Now I have placed a stitch marker here to mark the front of the little sweater. So from here on, this is going to be the front side, and this is going to be the inside of the little sweater. So I placed a stitch marker. So row 8 was worked on the wrong side. Now in the next row, we're going to divide the sleeves. This is going to be row 1, and this row is going to be worked on the right side. So here I'm going to chain 2 and I'm going to turn. Now here I'm going to work these 13 stitches. So beginning on top of the first stitch, I'm going to make the first one. So that's 1, 13. There, I have 13 stitches here. One thing I forgot to mention, the measurement here of the yoke depth. It's measuring about 3.5 inches, which is about 9 centimeters. I forgot to mention that before we started here. Now to separate the first sleeve, remove this stitch marker. Now here in this first corner, I'm going to make 3 stitches. That's 1, 2, 3. Now to separate the first sleeve, chain 3. I'm going to skip these 24 stitches, and in the second corner here, remove the stitch marker and make 3 stitches. That's 1, 2, 3. Now continue along for the back side and work these 26 stitches. I will meet you right here. This is the third corner to show you how we're going to separate the second sleeve. I finished making these 26 stitches for the back side. Now in this third corner, I'm going to remove the stitch marker and I'm going to make 3 stitches here. Now to separate the second sleeve, chain 3, skip these 24 stitches, and inside this fourth corner, I'm going to make 3 stitches. That's 1, 2, 3. Now continue along and finish these last 13 stitches. I will meet you at the end of this first row. I finished the first row. This is where we have separated the sleeves. Now at the end of this row, I have a total of 70 stitches, including the chains. Each one of the front panels has 16 stitches, and for the back side, I have 32 stitches. And then under each sleeve, I have 3 stitches. So that's a total of 70 stitches at the end of this first row, including the chains. Now for the second row, I'm going to chain 2, and here I'm going to turn. Now for this second row, all I'm going to do is 1 stitch for each one of these 16 stitches of the front panels. Here, beginning on top of the first, I'm going to make the first stitch, and I'm going to continue like this until I come to the chains here under the first sleeve. I will meet you right here to show you how we're going to work the chains under the sleeves. I finished making these 16 stitches for the first front panel. I have the 3 chains under the first sleeve. Now into the first chain, I'm going to make an increase. So here I'm going to make 2 of these stitches. That's 1 and 2 into the first chain. Now in the second chain, just make 1. In the third chain, make 2. So you should have 5 stitches here under the sleeve. That's 2, 3, 4, 5. Now continue along and work these 32 stitches for the back side, and when you come here to the chains under the second sleeve, you're going to do the same thing. You're going to make 2 in the first chain, then 1 stitch in the second chain, and then 2 stitches in the third chain, and then continue and finish the last 16 stitches. I will meet you at the end of this second row. I'm here at the end of this second row. At the end of this second row, I have a total of 74 stitches. From here on, we're always going to have 74 stitches. Now for row 3 and on, you're just going to chain 2 and turn. From now on, we're just going to continue and work 1 stitch for each one of these stitches until we have the length here of the body of the sweater. Now for this third row, beginning on top of the first stitch, I'm going to make the first stitch here, the first herringbone stitch. Into the next, make the next one, into the next, another one, and so on. For this row, this is all I'm going to do, 1 stitch for each one of these stitches, and at the end of this third row, I'm going to have 74 stitches, and that's how you're going to continue, and just repeat that third row over and over until we have the length here of the body of the little sweater. I'm not sure how many rows I'm going to do, but continue watching. I will let you know exactly how many rows I'm going to do, so continue, and I'll meet you at the end of that row. I finished the body of the little sweater. I did a total of 16 rows. So from here where we separated the sleeves up to here, I have 17 rows. We have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16 rows. The last row that I did was worked on the wrong side. Now for row 17, I'm going to do 1 row here for the hem. But before that, let me give you the measurement. From the top of the shoulder to the end of the last row, it's measuring about 24.5 centimeters, which is about 9.75 inches. Now, if you want to make this part here longer or shorter, you can. That would be up to you. You can always add more rows. Just make sure that the next row that you do, it's worked on the right side, just like we're going to do here for row 17 of the hem. So let's start here. I'm going to chain 2, and I'm going to turn. So for row 17, I'm going to start with a double crochet on top of the first stitch. Now into the next, right here, I'm going to work a front post double crochet, back post double crochet into the next, front post double crochet into the next, and so on. And this is how I'm going to continue for row 17. So continue like this. Finish row 17. I will meet you here at this other end to show you what we need to do next. I'm here at the end of row 17. This is the row here for the hem. In this row I did front post and back post double crochets. Now here at the end on top of the last stitch, make a double crochet. And this is how I finish this row. Row 17 with a total of 74 stitches. Now what we're going to do next is we're going to work the left front panel. I'm going to start here with this front panel, and it's going to be worked on the right side. So to begin here, I'm going to chain 1, and right along the very edge of row 17 I have the last double crochet that I did. So here I'm going to make 2 half double crochets. That's 1 and that's 2. Now at the end of the previous row, so row 16 right here, I'm going to make 1. So insert your hook into that, chain 2, and make 1 half double crochet. Now into the next row we have a double crochet, or one of the stitches, herringbone stitch. So here make 2. Into the next, make 1. Into the next, 2. That's how I'm going to continue all the way to the top. 1 into the next row, then 2 into the next row. Here we want to make sure not to make too many of these half double crochets, otherwise this part here is going to be too loose. Into the next 2, and so on. That's how I'm going to continue. 2, then 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, all the way to the top I will meet you right here and I'll tell you how many half double crochets I have for this front panel, and then I'll show you what we need to do next for the second row. I'm here at the top of this first row of half double crochets along this side of the front panel. This is the left side. I'm here at the top. I have my last 2 half double crochets here into this last row, or the first row here for the yoke. I'm going to make one more and I'm going to go here into this chain like this. So now I have a total of 39 half double crochets at the end of this row. Now if you have 1 or 2 stitches less or more, it's okay. The important thing is that when you do the other side, you make the same number of stitches. Now for row 2, I'm going to chain 1 and I'm going to turn. The second row is being worked on the wrong side. So here on top of this first stitch, make a half double crochet. Now into the second one, the next one, I'm going to make a front post half double crochet. Into the next back post half double crochet. Into the next front post half double crochet. Back post half double crochet into the next. And front post half double crochet into the next, and so on. This is how I'm going to continue for this second row, just alternating between a front post and a back post half double crochet. Now make sure that these stitches here for the second row, the front post and back post stitches, are nice and loose so that this part here is nice and straight. So continue like this. I will meet you here at the end of this second row. I finished the second row. Now here at the end on top of the last stitch, I did a half double crochet. I cut my yarn and passed my yarn through this last loop, and this side here is done, and this is how it looks. I just did 2 rows, 1 row of half double crochets, then the second row was front post and back post half double crochets, and at the end of each row I had 39 stitches. Now what we're going to do next is we're going to go here to the right side and we're going to start from the top down. So here to begin, we have the row of chains. So in this row of chains, I'm going to make a half double crochet, but first I'm going to grab a loop here, bring it through. I'm going to chain 1 and then make a half double crochet here in this row of chains. Now, as I did for the other side, in this row I did 2 half double crochets, and then in the next I did 1. 2 half double crochets on the next, and then 1 on the next row. And that's how I'm going to continue, just alternating between 1, 2, 1, 2, all the way down to the end here. I will meet you right here at the end of this first row to show you what we need to do next. I'm here at the end of this first row. For the second front panel, I have 39 stitches. Now for the second row, chain 1 and turn. Beginning on top of the first stitch, make a half double crochet. Now into the next, make a front post half double crochet, into the next back post half double crochet, and so on. For this second row, this is all I'm going to do. Just alternate between a front post and a back post half double crochet, just like I did for the first front panel. Continue. I will meet you up here at the end to show you how we're going to work the neckline. I finished the second row here. For the second front panel, I have 39 stitches. So this front panel is done. Now we're going to continue along the neckline here, and we're going to work this row of the neckline on the wrong side. So to do this here, I'm going to begin by making 1 chain, and then at the end of this second row where I did the last stitch, I'm going to make a half double crochet. Now half double crochet at the end of the next row, or the first row that we did here for the second front panel. So here I have 2 half double crochets. Now I have the next stitch here for the neckline. Beginning here, I'm going to work a front post half double crochet. Now into the next back post half double crochet, front post half double crochet into the next, and so on. Make sure that these stitches are nice and loose so that the neckline here is not too tight. If you prefer to do just a row of half double crochets, you can do that too. Instead of working front post and back post half double crochets, I'm making sure that my stitches are nice and loose. That way the neckline won't be too tight. Now continue, finish this row. I'll meet you here at this other end. Okay, I'm here at the end. I'm almost done with this row all around the neckline. This last stitch that I have here is a front post, and I have these last 2 stitches here at the end. These are the 2 rows that we did for the front panel. So here I'm just going to make a half double crochet on top of each one. So that's 1, and here at the end along the very edge I'm going to make the last one. Now I've cut my yarn, so I'm just going to pass my yarn through this last loop, and this is how I finish this row all around the neckline. I have a total of 46 half double crochets for the neckline. If you have 1 or 2 stitches less or more, it's okay. The important thing here is the neckline is not too small. Make sure that when you do these stitches, they're nice and loose. You can also just make half double crochets all around. Now this part here is done, the front panels along with the neckline. If you notice, I did not make any buttonholes, and that is because the spaces in between the rows of half double crochets, this one here, are big enough for buttons to fit through. Normally with a 3.5 millimeter hook, I use 12, 13, or even 14 millimeter size. At the end of the tutorial, once I finish the sweater and I add my buttons, I'll let you know what size buttons I'm going to use. If you're using a smaller or bigger hook size, try your buttons and make sure that they fit through this hole that is left between these 2 rows of front post and back post half double crochet. So like right here, you can see that hole that is left. Now this little sweater is for boys, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to place my buttons on this side, and I'm going to use this side for my buttonholes. If it's for girls that you're making this for, then you're going to do the opposite. You're going to use this side for your buttonholes and then place your buttons on this side. Now if you're making this for baby where you don't know the sex, then just do it like I'm going to do it. So buttons are going to go here, and this side is going to be for buttonholes. Now what we're going to do next is the sleeves. I already did this side, so when you do this side, you're going to do it exactly in the same way how I'm going to show you here on this side. So we're going to go right here. This is the left side. We're going to go right here, right under the sleeve. Remember, we added 3 chains, so I'm going to insert my hook right in the center stitch, so right there. So I have 1 chain here on this side and 1 on this side. So insert the hook there, grab a loop, bring it through, chain 1, and here make a double crochet. Now I'm going to make a double crochet decrease into these next 2 stitches, into the chain that's next to the middle one. So right here, insert your hook, grab a loop, take 2 loops off, leave 2 loops on the hook, yarn over, then go here into this stitch. That's the last stitch that we did as we separated the sleeves. So insert your hook there into that space, grab a loop, take 2 loops off, 3 loops on the hook, close. Here's the double crochet decrease. Now I'm going to go into the first stitch out of the, how many did we leave for the sleeve? Out of the 24 that we left for the sleeve. So insert your hook here and make your first herringbone stitch. The only 2 double crochets that I have are these 2 that I did. I decided to make these into double crochets and not the stitch. So now I'm just going to continue all around the sleeve and make these 24 herringbone stitches. Continue. I will meet you here at this other end. This is the last stitch out of the 24, and then I'll show you how we're going to finish this first row for the first sleeve. I'm here at the end of this first row for the first sleeve. Now up to here, which is the last stitch out of the 24 that we had left for the sleeve, I have 26 stitches, including the 2 that we did here at the beginning. So now to finish, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into this space. This is the last stitch that we have when we separated the sleeves. So in that space, insert your hook, grab a loop, take 2 loops off, leave 2 loops on the hook, yarn over again, and then I'm going to go here where I have the chain right there. I'm going to grab a loop, take 2 loops off, 3 loops on the hook, close. Here's a double crochet decrease. So now at the end of this first row, I have a total of 27 stitches. I have 24 of the herringbone stitches, and I have the double crochet in the center and then 2 double crochet decreases on both sides. Now to finish, you're going to go on top of the first stitch and make a slip stitch. And here's the first row. Now this first row was worked on the right side, so the second row is going to be worked on the wrong side. So chain 2 and turn. Now here to begin, we're always going to go back to the same stitch that we joined to. So it's right here, not here, because this stitch that's right in front of the chains is actually the slip stitch. So we're going to go right here, so slightly to the back. So yarn over here and just insert your hook here and grab a loop. Here we're going to start with the herringbone stitch. Take 1 loop off, take 1 loop off, take 2 loops off. Here's the first herringbone stitch. Now if you have a hard time making this first stitch, then you can always start with a double crochet and then just join to the double crochet at the end of the row. For me, I'm going to always make the first stitch as a herringbone stitch. Remember that 2 chains will never count. Now into each one of these stitches, I'm going to make one of these stitches, a herringbone stitch. And at the end of this second row, I'm going to have 27 stitches. From here on, I'm always going to have 27 stitches. Now continue like this all around for this second row. I will meet you here at the end to show you once again how to start and how to finish each row from here on, since you're going to continue on your own and finish the sleeve. I'm here at the end of this second row. I have 27 of these stitches. Now to finish each row from here on, you're just going to go on top of the first stitch and make a slip stitch. And this is how I finish the second row with 27 stitches. Like I said, from here on, we're always going to have 27 of these stitches. And to begin each row, you always chain 2 and turn. And here to begin, you always have to make sure to start into the same stitch that you joined. So it's this stitch right here. If you go into this stitch that's in front of the chains, then you're going to be adding stitches at the end of each row, and you don't want to do that. So go to this stitch here and start your row by making your first stitch here, and then into each one of the stitches you make a herringbone stitch. And that's how you're going to continue for the rest of this second row. Now to finish, you always go on top of the first stitch, join with a slip stitch, chain 2 and turn. Remember, the 2 chains never count. The stitches that we're counting are the actual stitches that we're making here, not the chains. And for the sleeve here, we're going to do a total of let's see, I did 15 rows here. So from here up to here, there's 15 rows, and then I did 1 row here for the cuff. So continue, let's make these 15 rows, and then I'll come back and show you how to make the cuff. I did a total of 15 rows here for the sleeve. Now row 15 was worked on the right side. For row 16, we're going to make 1 row here for the cuff where I did front post and back post half double crochet. So we're going to do the same thing here. So to begin row 16, I'm going to chain 1. Row 16 is also going to be worked on the right side. So here, beginning with this first stitch, I'm going to start with a front post half double crochet into the next, back post half double crochet, front post half double crochet into the next, and so on. This is how I'm going to continue for row 16. One thing I forgot to mention, if you want to make your sleeve longer, you can just make sure that the last row that you make, it's also worked on the right side, so that the row here for the cuff is also worked on the right side. And that's how we're going to continue for this last row. I'm going to go ahead and finish this row, and then you can go ahead and just finish the other sleeve. You're going to do it exactly in the same way. So I'll come back after I am done to show you the finished sweater. I finished making the cuff at the end of this 16th row where I did front post and back post half double crochets. I just joined to the beginning with a slip stitch, cut my yarn and pass my yarn through this last loop, and the sleeve is all done. Now you're going to do exactly the same thing we did here for this sleeve. You're going to do it here on this side. It's done exactly in the same way. So here's the finished little sweater. This is how it looks. I went ahead and attached my buttons. Now I used 5 of these buttons. These are 12mm size, but you can also use 13mm size. I tried 13mm and they easily fit through this hole that's between the rows of half double crochets that we did for the front panels. So that's all I did, and here's a little sweater. Now let me give you the finished measurement. From the top of the shoulder to the end of the sleeve, it's measuring about 9 inches, which is about 22.5 centimeters. From under the sleeve to the end of the sleeve, it's measuring about 5.25 inches, which is about 13.5 centimeters. Now the sleeve width, just the top, it's measuring about 3.25 inches, which is about 8 centimeters. Now the length from the top of the shoulder to the end here of the hem, it's measuring about 10 inches, which is about 25.5 centimeters. This measurement here right across the yoke depth, it's measuring about 4.5 inches, which is about 11.5 centimeters. Now the chest measurement, just the top, it's measuring about 8.75 inches, which is about 22 centimeters. So based on these measurements, this little cardigan sweater, coat, or jacket is for boys and girls between 0 and 3 months. Now you can easily make it smaller or bigger from a newborn size and up to 12 months. Down here in the information box, I'll go ahead and leave you some information on how you can easily make it smaller or bigger, so be sure to check that out. And as always, if you prefer a written pattern, check out my Etsy shop. I'll leave the link to my Etsy shop in the information box below. Now to make this little sweater, I used exactly 100 grams of DK weight yarn. At the beginning of the video, I showed you the yarn that I used. So here's the little sweater. Comment below and let me know if you want me to make the matching little pins or little socks. I'll gladly go ahead and do that for you all. Okay, so this was today's tutorial. I hope you like it. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time.